The views and opinions of this broadcast do not reflect the views and opinions of Armed Media, New Productions, and its affiliates. Enjoy the show.
No! I'm going down to Alphabet Street. I'm gonna crown this girl that I meet. I'm gonna talk slow.
Good evening, everybody. It is once again Tuesday night, and it is September 18th, 2018, and it's time for that F word. And you know what? I had some major F words going on Sunday watching the Vikings and Packers game. You know what? It ended in a tie. I'm good, but it was really one of the best games I've seen. I don't even remember the last time I saw a game so good, unless, we won it, of course. But that game, I had goosebumps. I had, happy times. I had angry times. And then I had the end of the game, which ended in a mother F word. And my son got it, and then he sent it on Snapchat. Not happy. But it is actually pretty funny. Anyway, speaking of funny, I've got a funny F word. Actually, it's not so funny. It's my family. My family's pretty funny, though, because, you know me. But if you think I'm funny, my mom has always told jokes. But I am so blessed, beyond belief, to be able to have both of my parents on the show tonight, because the F word for tonight is family. Like I said, welcome, Mom.
Thank you.
And my mom, she's Allie Kronberg, but she had a name before Kronberg. It was Miller, right?
Right.
Okay, so...
And it's Allie Ray Miller.
It's more like,
we always have to include the middle names.
That's right, Allie Ray. Allie Ray Miller. So, Mom, what I wanted to do tonight is, first of all, just kind of talk about you and what it was like, where you grew up. We can tell everybody where you grew up, because, you know what, being in Minnesota, it's a life I only got to hear about, and I got to go down and see, but I couldn't even ever really imagine it. I understood outhouses, because we used one at the cabin, but, your entire way of life, even back then, was so different from up here,
Yep, that's right.
All right, so I want to hear about, so the F word is family, so tell me about your family and growing up.
Growing up, I had 5 brothers and sisters. 2 sisters, 3 brothers. My dad was a coal miner.
What was his name?
Mom, Mason Miller.
Okay.
And Mason not only worked hard, he loved playing the banjo and doing all those kind of things, and just being with family.
Okay.
And so everything was centered around family and church, basically.
Where was this?
This was in the hills of eastern Kentucky, in a little town called Dwarf. And Dwarf is 9 miles from the biggest city around, which was called Hazard. And kind of the story of the Dukes of Hazzard was kind of loosely based on that, I believe. But that one was spelled with 2 Z's.
Okay.
My Hazard was spelled with just 1 Z.
Okay.
So that's, if anybody's ever watched the Dukes of Hazzard, you kind of get an idea of what it was like.
So the moonshine.
Oh yeah, moonshine and moonshine running, moonshine making.
Well, wait. Okay, so let's stop at that for a second. So did you have people in your family that had moonshine or made it or ran it, or what?
Well,
what are your experiences with that?
My dad used to years before he was married, but he totally stopped drinking and making moonshine and all that. I think even before they were married. But I had an uncle who actually spent time in prison for making moonshine.
No way. Which uncle was that?
That was Uncle Lick.
Uncle Lick. Okay, because obviously he was gone before I was born, I'm guessing?
Right.
Okay. Okay.
So moonshine in our house was basically used for medicine.
I could use that for medicine, I suppose.
Well, what my mom would do is she'd fill a quart jar up with rock candy, and I don't know how many people know what rock candy is, but it's a real almost all sugar, clear type candy. And then she'd pour the moonshine over it and let it sit. And that's if you got a cold or cough or whatever, you got a spoonful of that, and it really helps.
Wow, so it was just sugar-filled moonshine.
Basically, yeah.
Interesting.
I do the same thing when I make a hot toddy, but I use honey and whatever I happen to have on hand, some Southern Comfort or with a little lemon juice, and
Wait a minute.
Works
You're
great,
saying
works
Southern Comfort,
great.
but don't. I think last time I was at the cabin, I noticed some moonshine in the cupboard there.
well, no, we can't say that. Although there is some legal stuff out in the stores these days.
Oh, okay. Okay, is that what? That's what that is. Okay.
Of course, of
Okay.
course.
Good.
Would
Good.
be
Good.
anything
Good.
else?
Never. Not in our family for sure. Okay.
Nope.
All right. So let's go back. So your dad, Mason Miller. Tell me. You know what? I love hearing this because I mean. But tell me about Mason a little bit more because, you know, I kind of have a fondness for that name, actually.
Well, he loved playing the fiddle and he loved playing the banjo, and he was one of those hard-working men that just got up, and my mom got up early in the morning, about 3:30 or so, and made biscuits from scratch and a big breakfast and that, and sent him off to work, and he'd come home all black and scabby from the coal dust, and we'd have a big supper, and we'd sit around and listen to the radio. And he had a couple other things that he enjoyed doing. You know, he loved hunting and he loved fishing, and he was also kind of the neighborhood barber.
Wow, I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Many times he sat on the front porch and he had his barber chair and whatever chair he used for it, but with his clippers and that, and people would come over and sit out there and get a haircut from Mason. He was the best barber around because he was the only one around.
So did they pay him for that?
I think he used to get 50 cents a haircut, yes.
That's not bad, really, when you think about it. Or probably bartered. Did you do a lot of bartering?
He loved to barter. He bartered for anything and everything that we had. Everything that we got, he traded for something. There was very little money to exchange for anything. I mean, we were very poor, but he would... When I was about 12 years old, we got our first bicycle, and he traded for that from someone. And it was for both my brother and I. And so I don't know what he had to trade for it, but he was also very into guns, and he was quite a gunsmith in his own right, self-taught, but he never had any really formal education. In fact, he barely finished first grade.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and he could write his name, but he couldn't, for anything other than that. That was pretty much it. And he could spell out a few words and read a little bit, but he was, he had to quit school before he finished because there was no money for him to get supplies for school, like a slate board or whatever it was that they used back then, and he was needed to work on the farm, so that was the kind of life they had.
Where did he grow up?
He grew up, I'm not real sure, it was in the neighboring county, I think. No, I think it was still in Perry County, but it was way up in the head of one of the hollers.
Yes.
Which most places were, but that's what he did. He just worked and played music and cut hair and worked on guns for people. He brought in a little bit of extra money working on guns for people, and just just did whatever, and he was a great storyteller.
Mm-hmm.
We would, every night before we went to bed, he would tell a story.
What kind of story? Not like the Three Bears, right?
No, it wasn't like any book or anything. He made up his own stories.
Wow, I love it.
And adventure type things. And he would get to a certain point where it was really exciting. He'll say, now we'll continue this tomorrow night.
Oh.
And so he'd just leave us hanging,
Oh. How long would he talk for? Like a few minutes or a long time?
No, we get, maybe half an hour to an hour.
Wow.
And we'd all sit around the fireplace and listen to him telling his stories, and then we'd go to bed. And the next night we couldn't wait until he told the stories again, and it was other nights we, instead of hearing the stories, we'd get a radio show that we'd listen to.
What was your favorite radio show?
The B-Bar-B.
What was that about?
It was a cowboy show, I think. I don't remember.
Oh, funny. It's so crazy to think of. I mean, and now family still lives in the house.
Right. My sister-in-law still lives there, and
yep.
One of my nephews.
Yep. And so tell people like what the house was like. I mean, because your family, I mean, was pretty big.
Well, it wasn't pretty big, but it was.
Well, as compared to
it was average compared to most of the others around. It was because it was built on the mountainside,
mm-hmm.
and there's very little flat land. There was a little creek that ran in front of our place, but the back of the house was built up to the hillside, and then the front of the house was on stilts.
Okay.
So you had to climb up steps to get up to the front porch.
Okay.
And we had a dirt yard.
Mm-hmm.
There was no grass to cut, but you always had to sweep the yard and clean up the rubbish and sticks and stuff that gathered in the yard. But we had two front rooms with a separate door for each. I don't know why they didn't connect the two back then, but we had one room that was called the upper.
You know what? I remember two doors.
Yeah. That one, the one was called the upper room, and was, I guess, more for like a guest bedroom because it didn't use that much. No, really, we had a fireplace in that room too, and then in the other front room, we didn't have a living room per se. We had that front room too was used as a bedroom, and it would have two double beds and a dresser and rocking chair and a fireplace, and that was basically it. And then behind that was the kitchen, and then there was a living room next to that, and then another tiny little bedroom in the back.
Whose bedroom was that?
That was mine for part of the time. We kind of switched off as kids grew up and left and so forth. So, but it wasn't very big, but my brother and his wife made it into their bedroom, and there was basically enough room for a bed and
right.
some places to hang clothes and so forth. But and then a back porch.
Yes.
So.
And the back porch ended up becoming a bathroom, right?
It ended up eventually becoming a bathroom, yes.
So so that line, Loretta Lynn, I remember well the well where I drew water.
Oh yeah, the well where I drew water. If you're familiar with Loretta's song, then that's my story, except for the music. Except for the music part, I don't sing.
Well, yeah, but Papa did.
Papa did. He sang and he played music. Yep. It skipped me somewhere along the line.
Yeah, but then
it came out in my kids and my grandkids.
That's right. Especially the grandkids.
Yes, exactly.
So, okay. So now you had some things that you wanted to talk about, though, a little bit. So what were, now, you know what, now we got to talk. Okay, so that was Papa. But now, Granny, what was her name?
Nora.
Nora.
Her maiden name was Lovins.
I love that
Nora. Nora Lovins.
Nora Lovins.
And she was one of about 7 kids.
Okay.
And
do you know how they met? Do you remember?
Yeah, I'm not sure how they met. I think it was just through community type things, and that. And Daddy used to ride his horse over to see her because she lived a ways off. She was probably 20 miles away, and he'd ride his horse over to go and see her, go sparking as they called it.
Sparking.
Sparking, yep.
Not courting, but
They
sparking.
didn't call it courting, they called it sparking.
I love it. Okay.
They must have struck a spark off each other.
Mm-hmm. Well, she's beautiful. They're both beautiful people. Gorgeous.
Yeah,
Very
of course.
Good looking, very good looking. So,
Of course.
okay. So then, I mean, obviously she stayed home with you kids. I mean, it's
Right.
so different than life today.
Oh, very different, yeah. It's a whole family thing. When you're talking family, the whole concept is different now because families are not what they used to be back then, even though he was a coal miner and made hardly anything. He always managed to keep food on the table and clothes on our backs. And nowadays you have to have both parents working just to halfway make ends meet.
Right.
So the kids, unfortunately, end up either being raised by babysitters or by the school or whatever. But we had the luxury of having our mom home all the time.
So was she strict? Who was the strict one?
He was.
Okay. Was he was more of the fun?
He was more of the fun one. She was fun too, but
Right.
he wielded a mean switch. So if you got
the only thing I think people nowadays know, is like the Adrian Peterson switch story, and people up north especially don't really understand that. But so explain the switch part of your life.
Well, the switch instead of spanking or anything like that, although sometimes a wooden spoon across the rear end might be used, but normally it was just a tiny little branch off the tree, not like a big piece of wood or anything like that. It was one of the twigs that was flexible and so forth, and he would only hit us on the legs, and it was it was sting. I mean, it didn't do any damage. It stung and it hurt, but it didn't take you long to get the message.
But did she make you go get your own switch?
She did make us sometimes go and get our own switch up until my sister Phyllis got smart. And she went and got her own switch, and then she cut little notches in it, so when Mommy hit her with it, it broke right away.
Okay.
She was the stubborn one, and
yes.
Phyllis. Well, Virgil was the oldest brother, and then there was Phyllis, and then there was Kathleen.
Yep.
And those 3 didn't always get along. And Phyllis and Virgil kind of stuck together, and Kathleen, Kat, she was the one they picked on.
Mm-hmm.
And so...
It was like that as when they got older, too.
Oh, exactly. It never went away.
I remember, yeah.
But then when Mommy would start using the switch on him, and she'd say, now kiss and make up.
Uh-oh.
Well, Kat and Virg would kiss and make up right away. Well, Phil wouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
Just spit on him.
Oh, my gosh. And that's where Mason got that from. Okay. Okay.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Somehow or other it comes down through the genes.
Wow.
So, anyway, out would come the switch.
Spit. Oh, my gosh. Poor Phil.
Yep, she was a feisty one.
No wonder she was my favorite.
Yeah, no kidding. I think you take after her just a little bit.
I think I do. Oh, you know what? I could take off after a lot worse, I think.
That's for sure.
Okay, so Go on, Mama.
What do you want to talk about next?
Well, no. So, okay, you talked about the three of them. Now there's more.
Okay, there was my brother Arthur. He was a year and a half older than me.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was me. And then about 7 or 8 years later came my youngest brother, Dennis.
The baby.
The baby of the family. And
so you were the baby, and that's
I was the baby, and then I was no longer the baby, and he was the baby, and
how did that
he
make
got
you feel?
everything.
Yeah, how did that make you feel?
It was okay up until the time when he started messing with me and throwing things at me, shooting me with a bow and arrow, and all that kind of stuff.
So
it was okay.
How did you shoot?
But he got away with a lot of stuff, you know.
Yeah, by then they were just
because he was the baby.
Yeah. Well, that must mean you got away with a lot of stuff because you were the baby for a long time.
I don't think so. I don't think I did, but my brother Arthur always said I did. So he was older than me. But no,
you were a baby girl too.
I was a baby girl, and I was known as the family crybaby.
Mm-hmm. Wonder where I got that from.
I wonder. Austin always used to tell me when he was a baby, "Cry, Grandma, I want you to cry."
That's right. That's right. So you grew up like that. So it's like Arthur, and then now, I mean, the only ones left are you and Dennis.
That's right. Just the two of us.
Yeah.
And one thing I forgot to mention, for entertainment was the bookmobile.
Oh, yes.
We had a bookmobile that came around to people in the neighborhood and once a week. And all of us loved reading except for my two older sisters, Phyllis and Kathleen. Okay. They weren't the readers. I mean, they did enough to get by and so forth, but my oldest brother Virgil, who grew up to be, he was a genius level.
Right.
And then my
brother
Arthur.
How old was he when he went to college?
He was 14 years old.
When he went to college.
Yes.
That just does. He's like a Doogie Howser.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so cool.
Yes. And so anyway, our love of reading for the four of us, Virgil and Arthur and myself and my youngest brother Dennis, we just all lived for that bookmobile to come around, and we'd check out several books to get us through, and otherwise we'd have comic books occasionally. And for Christmases were different then too. We had stockings, but they were regular stockings. They weren't fancy red Christmas stockings. You just hang up your long socks and found the biggest one you could find. And the only thing you got in them, though, was oranges and apples and nuts and candy. You were lucky.
Wow. No, but you loved it.
And one year we each got a comic book.
Okay.
So that was our entertainment, and we traveled the whole world through our imaginations.
Isn't that the greatest?
Yep.
That's the greatest.
That doesn't happen anymore.
No, we don't have to imagine anything anymore. We can just go online and see it.
Yep. Been there, done that.
It's like, I've been there.
Been there with you, Grandma. Now he's traveling the world.
No, yeah, exactly. He really experienced it. He didn't have to imagine it.
Exactly.
So we're talking about my oldest son, everybody. Okay. So you grew up like that, and I mean, there's somebody else responsible for me being here talking to you right now. But,
all right.
Okay, so how old were you when you left Dwarf, Kentucky?
I was 18.
Where'd you go?
I joined the Army.
Why?
The Women's Army Corps, I'll tell you. That's back when the women had their own army.
I see nothing wrong with that. We should
Nope.
we should reform it now and be up against the men these days.
Exactly. But anyway, no, we just want to be equal.
Right.
Or superior.
Right. Well, that's a given.
But why? I joined the Army because, first of all, I wanted to do something for my country.
Mm-hmm.
And secondly, when I graduated from high school, there were no jobs available. I mean, little country town in the hills, and there was just nothing going on. And about the most I might have been able to do was I even went to Louisville one summer to visit my sister and see about getting a job, and that didn't work out either. But the only thing available was restaurant work and waitressing, and I didn't want to do that. And I actually had a scholarship for college, and I honestly did not want to go to college. My teachers were the ones that put me in for it, and they really encouraged me to go because they thought I had so much potential. Mm-hmm. And I got right up to just before time to leave. I had my roommate all signed up and everything. And
where were you going to go?
To Cumberland College.
Okay.
In Cumberland, Kentucky.
Okay.
So, anyway, I decided I'm not doing this. This is not what I want. And about all you could train to be back then for women was to be a nurse or a teacher. And I had no interest in either of those. And so I talked to two of my girlfriends, and they were in the same boat. And we said, my older sister, Kat, was already in the Army. So I knew about that, and so we decided we'd go see the recruiter and see what was available, and took the preliminary tests, and we all passed, and then those two backed out and decided they weren't going to do it.
Uh-oh, which friends were those? Do I know them?
Well, one was my cousin Louise, and the other was my friend Nellie Faye.
Okay, yeah. I know both of them, okay.
Yeah, and so anyway, I decided, I've come this far. I'm not going to back out on it. I just closed my mind to it, and I knew about it because of my sister and everything, and I thought, okay, I'm going through with it, and so I did. I got on the Greyhound bus and went from my hometown to the town of Ashland, Kentucky, and from there took all the rest of the tests and everything, and got on a train bound for Fort McClellan, Alabama. I'd never been away from home by myself before in my life.
Wow.
So that was quite a jump. I've never been sorry.
Did you get homesick?
Oh yeah, everybody would get homesick, but back then there was no cell phones, no instant communication, and
just letters.
So just letters, and live for those letters.
Well, and there wasn't even a phone at the house.
Well, no, there wasn't a phone at the house, but when I got my first paycheck from the Army, I had a phone put in for my mom so that I could call her.
Aw, I would have done that for you too, Mom.
You would. So anyway, then you get to make a phone call maybe once a month, and that was about it. But I had the phone put in.
Okay, so wait. So what was basic training like back then?
Basic training for women back then was not a whole lot of field duty. Being out running and jumping and climbing obstacles and all that type of thing. We had some of that, but we had to go through the gas station thing and put our mask on and go through the gas and all that kind of stuff, and a lot of marching and stuff, but also a lot of classroom training, learning all the stuff about the Army, the rules and regulations and stuff like that. But there wasn't very much available for women back then either in the Army, and mostly clerical type stuff. And so I got into that and ended up stationed at Fort Myer, Virginia, where my sister Kat was stationed. And
how does that happen? Did you ask?
Well, she worked in the office where they decide who they are going to take in. Yes. So she talked to her boss, and he put in a request for me to come there.
That's lucky.
So I knew ahead of everybody else where I was going to be going. And so I ended up working for a Defense Intelligence Agency in a top secret job, so I can't tell you about that or I'd have to kill you, so.
Yeah, and you wouldn't do that since you gave birth
Don't
to
want to
me.
do that,
No.
exactly. But anyway, while I was in there, that's when I met your dad.
Well, okay, so it's a really cool story how you met my daddy. So,
Yep.
what happened there?
Well, my roommate, her name is Elaine Ames, different name back then, Kit Symbol, but this one guy, this friend of your dad's, Terry, he wanted to date Elaine, and she was a shy Wisconsin girl, and I'm a shy Kentucky girl, and neither one of us were really into the ways of the world and hadn't dated very much. But anyway, Terry wanted to date Elaine, but Elaine wouldn't go anywhere with him unless I went along. So we're smart girls.
Yes, exactly.
So anyway, Terry says, well, a buddy of mine is on duty up at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier today. And he said, we can walk up there and I'll introduce you. Well, back then, Fort Myer, where our barracks were, was an easy walking distance from there up to the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier in Arlington Cemetery.
Okay.
So we walked up there, and that big row of steps coming up to it, we were walking up those steps, and your dad was on duty, and even though he couldn't appear to be looking at anything, he saw us coming up the steps. And so we waited until they changed the guard, and he went down in the quarters and changed into civilian clothes and came back up where we were, and that's when we met.
What did you think when you first saw him? I mean,
I thought,
first thing you
wow.
saw him was in uniform, right? So he was the
Right.
And what? And I mean, impressive first impression. See that?
Well, I had not yet seen the changing of the guard, so the ceremony itself impressed me.
Mm-hmm.
And the way he walked and the way he clicked his heels, actually, was what really caught my interest, because they had these big cleats on the inside of their shoes, so it sounded really sharp, you know. And so the way he clicked his heels and those sharp military movements and so forth. And then after he came back up in civilian clothes,
What was he wearing?
he was wearing a blue sweater with some black in it and so forth, and that blue just picked up the blue in his eyes. So it's like, wow. And after we got back, you know, it took about 2 weeks before he asked me out for a date because he didn't have a car.
Okay.
And then he borrowed his, well, Chuck, you know Chuck.
Yes.
Chuck had his car there, and Chuck says, well, you can borrow my car. So he borrowed Chuck's car, and we went out on a date.
Well, how did he ask you on the date? Because did you have a phone? What happened there? How did he have your number? How did this all work?
Well, I don't remember if... Oh, he asked me, we had this place that we kind of hung out on Fort Myer. It was just a little restaurant, snack shop type of place, and a theater and all that in it. And that's where a lot of the people in lower ranking enlisted people went to just hang out and listen to music and have a Coke. And so it was there that he asked me for the first date.
Aww.
And we were all in a group, and
Did you giggle? Did you blush?
Oh, probably. I don't know. I was trying to act real smooth, you know.
Right.
But he kind of did it as a blanket thing with a group thing. Thinking about going bowling on such and such a night. Is anybody interested? And nobody else was. And I said, we'll go.
Ah.
So that's the way he led up to it. You know, everybody else was all primed not to accept, I think. He must have told them ahead of time. I don't know.
Oh, that's
But anyway.
funny.
And after I came home from the first date, I told my roommate, I said, Elaine, that's the man I'm going to marry.
Well, tell me about that first date. So you went bowling?
We just went bowling that night, didn't we? Yeah. So we didn't even go park.
Ew. Okay. I didn't know about that.
No, he had this thing that he did.
What did he do?
He gave me a butterfly kiss.
Dad, he used to give me butterfly kisses.
I know. That's what, that butterfly kiss. I never had a butterfly kiss before, so.
I wonder where
it's
he
like,
got
okay.
that from my grandma. Because Grandma
Probably.
used to do that, too.
Then he probably did get it from Grandma. I just thought it was pretty cool.
Well, that's really cool, and it makes me happy that he didn't, grope you everything, the first night, or I'd have to have a different opinion. Like, ew, Dad.
No, he didn't.
Okay, so you came home, told her you wanted to marry him. How long did
told her, yeah.
How long did that take?
That would have been in September of 62, and then we were married in April of 63.
6 months.
Yep.
Look at that. So,
Yeah.
How did you decide, and who asked?
He did.
Okay, did he get down on one knee?
Oh, of course not. I think he asked me on the phone.
What? What?
He did.
No, that's typical Dad. That's typical when you say
That's
so.
typical Dad.
How romantic, not.
Yep.
That's funny. So he called you. I mean, seriously. I never knew that.
No, are you wanting to talk to him here pretty soon?
Yes.
No, he says he'll talk to you some other day. He said I should talk the whole time. He's backing out on you, Kath.
That's okay. That's okay. I was just thinking, it's like, that's okay, because we can start it from this side, and then we can do Dad next week.
Yep,
That's fine.
Okay.
That's fine. So, okay. See? So he asked you to marry him over the phone. Yeah, because look, you haven't even gotten to your kids yet.
Nope.
Okay. So you said yes, obviously. Were you just over the moon? What did you,
Yeah, it's hard to remember all that, all the details and everything.
Right.
But yeah, I was excited and happy and everything, and called
who did you tell first?
Called my mother first.
Yes.
And he called his mother.
Okay.
Or actually, he didn't call his mother first.
Uh-oh.
He wrote her a letter. And he said, "Guess what? I'm getting married in 2 weeks." He didn't tell his mother and father until 2 weeks before the wedding.
Mm.
And he said, "Guess what? I'm getting married in 2 weeks." And she wrote back and she said, "Guess what? You're what?" And then I can't say the rest of it on the radio.
She did not.
Huh?
Did she use bad language, my grandma?
No, she said what Father had told her. Father said I'm not going to say it, so. Anyway, no, she didn't use bad language. She just made a comment that your grandpa has said.
Uh-oh.
But anyway, there we were. We were married in Washington, D.C. at Fort Leslie J. McNair.
Okay.
And maybe we'll get a chance to go to that chapel when we go out there in 2 weeks.
Yes. So, wait. So, she wrote a letter back. I'm assuming that the mail didn't go that fast back then. I'm just assuming, since things were slower back then.
Yeah.
So, she probably didn't get a lot of notice, and you guys were already married then. And
yeah.
so,
we weren't already married. We weren't already married by the time we got the response. But.
Okay, but close to it. How did you feel? Yeah. Did he show it to you?
Yes. And I didn't know what it meant.
Yeah.
The comment that he had made. So.
Ah, okay.
I'll tell you that off the air.
Okay. Yeah, because now I want to know, like Grandpa. So that's crazy. Well, how did your mom and dad react?
surprised, but yet they weren't. At first, they weren't sure I was really serious.
Because it was so quick.
It was, yeah, and I'd had all these different boyfriends, and I get all excited every time I get a new boyfriend, and
Oh, this is the one. I love him.
No, I wouldn't go that far, but I'd write letters and I'd tell them all about it, about who I'd met and this and that, and so they didn't get too excited about it because they thought, oh yeah, right.
Here's another one.
So, but the day of our wedding, I called after the wedding, and it happened to be, actually we got married on my dad's birthday, April 6th.
Yeah.
And Daddy used to say that was the best birthday present he ever got.
Aww.
So, it was cool. He was very accepted, and I did take him home to meet them before we got married. Or no, I did not take him home to meet them before I took him home to meet them after we got married.
Yeah, that way he couldn't get out of it.
Right, I didn't want to scare him off, so I told him he had to be able to get along with the dogs. The dogs had to like him, and he had to be able to outshoot my baby brother.
Okay, and so that was...
And he did
That
both.
was Smokey and Candy, right?
Smokey and Candy.
Okay. Did he get along with the dogs?
Those were the dogs. Yep. He got along with them. They accepted him well enough. So.
And then did he outshoot?
He outshot Dennis.
Good.
Was a real sharpshooter. So anyway, what now? And he's over there coaching me. He says, "Tell him about my military career."
Well, but no, we're gonna save that for Dad's turn.
Well, I had a military career after that too,
Right, so we'll save it for Dad's turn. Tell Dad he's got to talk next week. That's all good.
No, he wants me to tell you about my military career.
Oh, okay. So your military career, okay.
Well, yeah, I worked for Defense Intelligence Agency when I was on active duty. Mm-hmm. And that was when Vietnam was just getting started. We had advisors over there and everything, and there was a lot of work going on behind the scenes. There was a lot going on at that time, even though it wasn't really well known, and so, but at that time also, then everything I worked with was top secret, and I was in and out of the Pentagon and in and out of all these different places, and in fact, the Pentagon was about 2 blocks away from my barracks where I lived on Fort Myer before we got married.
Wow.
And you went through a tunnel to get over there, and it's totally different, and everything's all blocked off and barricaded and everything now. But then, at that time, if a woman was going in the Army, she had to be single.
Okay.
But once you were in, you could get married, and you had a choice. You could either stay in as a married woman, or you could take an honorable discharge by reason of marriage.
Wow.
And so I chose, because he was going to be getting out of the Army in a few months, and I had another 2 years or so to go. And so I chose to go ahead and get my discharge. And I got my discharge on a Friday and started to work on a Monday, sat at the same desk, did the same job. I wore civilian clothes instead of a uniform, and I got paid more.
Nice.
Just switched over to civil service. And after 11 years, then they opened it up so that women could come in even if they were married, and Dad had stayed in the reserves, so I joined the reserves too and ended up finishing out a total of years with combined active reserve, and inactive reserve. So I retired with 30 years as a first sergeant, which is almost as high as him.
Yes.
In fact, I outranked him when we first met. I was a Spec 5 and he was only a PFC. So.
Wow.
He used to polish my shoes for me.
Did he for real ever?
Yep.
I love it. That's funny. That is funny. So wow. So I think people don't realize, and you know what, I'm going to tell you, Mama, because, you know, but thank you for that, for your service, because a lot of people don't recognize women in the military.
No,
they don't think,
they
especially
don't.
back then. And
no, they don't. It's getting better, but we've had to kind of fight and claw our way up.
Right.
So we've done it in spite of that.
Exactly. And but now during those 11 years you had off, you were a little busy too, right?
I was a little busy.
What
Yep,
did you do? Like July 2nd? You don't have to say the year.
Yeah. I went through 64 hours of labor to deliver the most beautiful baby girl in the world.
Aww.
Yep, my daughter Cathy. And then I had my baby boy in 67, Dennis.
How long was his labor?
It was about maybe 12 hours.
Okay. Anything worthwhile is worth waiting for, so.
Exactly. And you're both well worth it.
Started out as a pain.
Big pain.
Right?
A long
pain. And then, okay, so I was born, we're in Minneapolis. So you're Washington, D.C. You were pregnant with me when you moved to Minneapolis, is that right?
I just found out I was pregnant, yes. We moved in October. We came back because he got out of the Army in October.
Why Minneapolis? I mean, so here's little Kentucky girl, and, you know, Dad was from Superior, and we'll talk about that next week, Daddy. But so, Minneapolis, did he have a job already?
He worked in Minneapolis when he got drafted into the Army.
Okay.
And so back then they had, and I think they still are supposed to, under employers' supportive guard and reserve or whatever, I think you're supposed to still keep your job open for you.
Okay.
So after we came back to Minneapolis, that was because he knew he had a job waiting for him. And so that's why we came to Minneapolis. He actually considered, because he really liked Kentucky, and he actually considered trying to find a job in Kentucky instead of going back to Minneapolis, but there just wasn't anything around, so we just continued with our plans.
Well, he ended up getting his wishes eventually, so that's good.
Yeah, we got the best of both worlds. We now have Wisconsin and Kentucky. And Minneapolis.
So you worked. Where you work? I remember you not having a driver's license. I always thought it was just because you were scared to drive.
It was because he was an old-fashioned man, and he did not want me to learn to drive.
Barefoot and pregnant.
Yep. Keep him barefoot and pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
Up until you started wanting dancing lessons, and we had this appointment and that appointment and piano lessons and all this, and I managed for a while with imposing on the neighbors for rides and stuff, and he just said it was time for me to learn to drive. And the one guy I was working for, Harold Cassell, with the Independent Order of Foresters, he had a car he was trying to sell, and Dad bought it, and he said, okay, here's your car, now you're going to learn to drive. He took me out for my first driver's lesson, and after him trying to teach me the first time, I said, I'm signing up for lessons.
I understand that, even today.
Yep.
Even today. I can't imagine. Because he still tries to tell us what to do.
Oh, exactly. That's his job. He's your dad.
Right? Oh.
But I would never dream of doing that, right?
Right. So, so then you worked, how many years? So after 11 years, you went back to the Army. But what else did you do? I mean, that was Army Reserve, so that was like typically the one weekend a month. I mean, there was more here and there, but I mean, I remember always being so nervous. You'd tell me that you'd be playing war games. I'd go stay at Uncle Jack and Aunt June's down in Milwaukee, or with Grandma and Grandpa, or whatever, and I was so scared.
That was when we went for a 2 weeks annual training at Fort McCoy.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, typically it's a 1 weekend a month job, but the higher you get in rank, the more the responsibilities grow, and the more weekends you put in, and it really kind of shortchanged you and Dennis, because with both of us being in, with his drill weekends and my drill weekends, we maybe ended up being home together 1 weekend a month.
Right.
So it was...
But then, like, when I was in high school, it seemed like you guys were gone at the same time a lot.
We did. We ended up being in the same unit for quite a while, and so we had the same training dates and stuff.
And that wasn't shortchanged to me then, when I was in high school.
Well, of course not, because it was party time.
So that's
Party time.
Now I remember why. See, it's like I just remember you being gone a lot.
Yep, I was gone a lot with the military, and with my jobs and stuff too. But I worked several. When you and Dennis were little and still in grade school and so forth, I worked part-time jobs, and I was there when you left in the morning, and I was there when you came home.
Right.
But in between your leaving and coming home, I had one job that I went to, and then after you got home and after Dad got home to be with you, I would go to work at Target at nighttime. Wasn't
that the first Target in the U.S. too?
Yes, it was.
Knollwood. That's kind of cool. Because now, I mean...
No, I'm sorry. I think it was the second one.
The second store?
Okay. It was T2. It was Target 2.
Okay. I wonder what the first one was.
I don't know. I can't remember. I used to know.
I'll find out. That's interesting. Because, I mean, Target, everybody knows Target now. And so think about it back then. And I just, I remember being so shy when I was a little girl. And I remember one of the mean girls, I'm not even going to say her name, but one of the mean girls, you know who I'm talking about, that was always she was always my bully.
Yep, I know.
Yep. So she was like, oh, what did the bird say when it flew over Target? Cheep, cheep. I mean, like that little, like, yeah. It was always like, really? I really didn't like her. But I mean, she was like that kind of weird mean. Oh, your mom works at Target.
Yeah, I know. And, I know exactly what you're talking about.
And I used to always want to say, and your mom doesn't have a husband, whatever. But I didn't, because I probably would have gotten punched in the stomach or something.
I don't suppose you remember riding in the cart through Target and pushing around in the cart, and who was your favorite character back then?
Batman.
Your favorite TV show? Yep.
Batman.
That was one of the few words you could say. Batman, Batman, all the way through Target.
And now my oldest son's name is Keaton, the first Batman movie. Yep. And then I had baby Austin and baby Mason. So Keaton was named after Batman, but his middle name Alan, because Allie. And we've got Austin Lee. That's my middle name. And then we have Mason Donald.
That's also his Austin's dad's middle name.
Yes, that's correct.
Lee.
That's correct. That is correct. So
then you have Mason
Donald.
Named after
Papa.
It's Papa Mason.
And Grandpa.
And
his
Grandpa.
Dad. And his
Dad.
other grandpa who passed before he was born. Yes.
He's got a heavy load to carry, doesn't he?
Not so much. I mean, our wiener dog, Winston's middle name is Donald, so he takes up some of it too, because people laugh when I go, Winston Donald, get over here. So Winston takes up some of the heavy load.
Yeah.
But
Mason's got the heaviest.
Well,
He's got 3 Donalds in there.
Yes, he does. But you know what? He's
got the shoulders to carry it.
Yes, he does, and he's taking on the best of everybody. So that's where it's like, you know what? And my boys are pretty dang spectacular. You want to know why?
Because they're your boys.
No, because their grandparents have been excellent role models.
Well, thank you. I hope so. We love them dearly, of course.
And so that's got to be so different. I mean, I know I'm your favorite, obviously. But knowing, I mean, like you were there when I gave birth to Keaton.
Yes.
And, I mean, having grandchildren, though, I would love to know what it's like because, you know.
I would love to know what it's like to have great-grandchildren, too.
I know. So that, we have one more minute, Mama. So I just want to say, what is so as far as F words go, who's your favorite?
My favorite F word?
Your favorite?
Is family.
Okay, or I was going to say your favorite child. Ooh.
Oh, no, we can't do that.
Okay.
I have a favorite daughter and I have a favorite son.
There you go. And I have a favorite mama and a favorite daddy, and I love you. And I'm going to say goodnight. Thank you, Mama, for being on the F word. Daddy, you got to come on next week now, since we didn't give you a chance to talk at all. That wasn't so hard, was it, Mama?
That wasn't so tough.
All right, I love you. Good night.
I love you too, babe. Good night.
Good night. Good night, everybody. Thank you for listening in on the F word. We'll see you next week.